Good afternoon, grade 9. How are you today? Today, inshallah, we are going to continue talking about grammar, the third conditional clause. Let's just remind you of the rule. Today, we are actually going to do some exercises in your student book, especially exercise 2 and exercise 3 in your student book, page 116 and 117. But before we go to the exercises, we just want to make a quick review or a quick reminder of the rule of third conditional clause. First of all, we said that we use it to talk about imaginary or impossible situations in the past. So either you are going to have yesterday as a key term to show that this action happened in the past, or the atmosphere of the sentence shows that this sentence is in the past, such as when we are talking about a past event or past incident, such as the sink of the Titanic and the death of Shakespeare, etc. So, what is the rule of third conditional clause? If we have if as the first clause, we say if, and after if we should have had plus verb 3, and we call this past perfect. Past perfect, okay? And then comma, as you know, because if is a subordinate clause, and then the other clause has to be would plus have plus verb 3. Would have verb 3. This is in the positive sense, whereas in the negative you just add not على had فبتصير hadn't, أو not على would فبتصير wouldn't, and have stays the same, and then we add verb 3 of the sentence. For example, let me give an example. If the Titanic hadn't traveled so fast, مع if clause بستخدم had زائد verb 3 past perfect, comma, it would have arrived safely. So مع الother clause بدي يكون عندي would have and verb 3, would have and verb 3. Okay, now let's go to exercise 2. As I said, it's in your student book, page 116. Now, what do we have to do here? We need to continue the missing words by writing the correct form of the verb. Number 1, if the Roman Empire, this is a past event or past incident. We are talking about the Roman Empire. Okay, continue is the verb. مع if clause I should use had زائد verb 3 اللي هو past perfect. So if the Roman Empire had continued, Latin would probably have remained the most universal language. So the other clause should be would, have, and verb 3. Number 2, if the Titanic hadn't hit an iceberg, مع if clause had زائد verb 3, and this is in the negative, it would have arrived in New York safely. It would have arrived, would have زائد verb 3. Number 3, perhaps Sir Isaac Newton wouldn't have thought about gravity, would have verb 3, if an apple, and the correct verb is fall. So here we need to use past perfect. You add not to had فبتصير hadn't, and verb 3 from fall is fallen. If an apple hadn't fallen on his head. And this is also a past event. 4, if John Lennon and Paul McCartney, this is if, so not has to be with had, hadn't, and verb 3 from meet is met, hadn't met. The Beatles would never have existed. The Beatles اللي هي a musical band would have existed or would have never existed. Number 5, if Christopher Columbus, he discovered America, as they said. If Christopher Columbus had sailed east, had that verb 3, he wouldn't have, and verb 3 for find is found out. So if Christopher Columbus had sailed east, he wouldn't have found out that America existed. Number 6, the world would have evolved in a totally different way evolved. if somebody مع if بدي استخدم had invented the computer 200 years ago. If aliens had landed, verb 3 on Earth, somebody would have, and verb 3 from find is found, would have found some physical evidence to prove it by now. Now, in exercise 3, here you have a text about rabbits. We're not going to read it. We are going to do the exercise. To choose either had plus verb 3 مع if clause or would have verb 3 مع the other clause. This is found in your student book, page 117. Number 1, if rabbits had existed, the verb 3 from exist is existed in Australia. Austin wouldn't have or wouldn't have asked his nephew to send them. Number 2, if the environment in Australia hadn't, بعدين verb 3 be or been, it's been, hadn't been so good for the rabbit population wouldn't have increased, would have and increased, and here in the negative sense. If there had been natural predators in Australia, they would have killed the rabbits. Predators like lions and tigers, and rabbits are called prey. Number 4, if the rabbits haven't or hadn't destroyed so much land, they would or wouldn't have reduced the amount of food available to other animals. They wouldn't have reduced. Number 5, if they hadn't realized myxomatosis, the problem would have that verb 3 been. Number 6, if they had killed 100 of the rabbits in the 1950s, the problem would have stopped. Would have and stopped. Okay, now here we have an exercise 5, very interesting one actually, and it asks for your own personal opinion or your own personal situation that you may actually continue or finish these sentences, and برضو use the third conditional. Complete each sentences in the third conditional. Number 1, if it had snowed last summer. If it had snowed last summer, what would happen? What would have happened? We would have made a snowman. If it had snowed last summer, we would have, and verb 3 made a snowman. 2, if I had been born in the USA, what would have happened? I would have spoken English. Try to finish the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth sentence. This is exercise 5, and it is in your student book, page 117. Finish exercise sentence 4, 5, and 6 as a homework.